Welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. Sorry we're a couple minutes behind. We actually had a behind-the-scenes fight about how the Titans drafted, which we'll be talking about later along with everybody else in the AFC South. Drew, I know we're both still a little red in the face, man. How's it going? You doing okay tonight?
Doing good, man. I'm ready to talk about the AFC South draft and, not kill each other at the end of it is the best thing we can do.
If we both make it through this alive, I think it'll be a good show. Yeah. Why don't we talk first about Kyler Murray and the Combine, because we have some news going on about that. He showed up. He's 5'10", according to the official measurements here.
Shy a little over.
Just over, like an eighth of an inch above 5'10". We're talking about his height here, of course. And he showed up 207 pounds. Was that a surprise to you? He bulked up.
It's good. It's a good thing for him. I think he was like 185 in college, maybe sitting around there for sure. It's right. That's exactly.
He was close to like 170. I mean, they may list him as 185, but I think he was probably like
okay, they list
70.
him at 85. But it was still good to see him bulk up. Hopefully it's not fat. Hopefully it's muscle. Hopefully it's in the right areas. I mean, that's important for him because that small frame. Let me tell it very straight here. It's not like this guy's a string bean. This guy is built like a running back. When he has that weight, it's in his legs, in his arm. He is definitely a bulked up guy. He just needs to get a little bit bigger. Seeing at that weight, that's promising.
I agree, but I also am going to go an opposite direction here. There's a reason he's not running at the Combine. There's a reason he's not throwing at the Combine. He's not doing anything because he put all this weight on, and it's going to come right off in the next few weeks because this was for show. This was for the teams. He went in there saying, I'm not light. That's some BS. You don't need to worry about that. I really am 5'10". I think he put this weight on, and he doesn't plan to play at this weight at all. I think it's all for show. It's all to get drafted, and I'm okay with that. I understand it from it. I think if I was his agent, I'd be telling him the same thing. But I don't think he's going to play at 207. We're not talking about Kyler Murray running at 207 because I don't think he would have put good numbers up. That's why he's not doing anything at the Combine. I think he's the best player sitting at 185, like you said, somewhere around that 170 to 185 pounds where you can get that dynamic speed in there.
Right. But, this is still a young man. He's still going to grow. He's still going to get a little bit bigger. He is going to hit the gym with an NFL strength trainer. He is going to be able to get in there and get a little bit bigger. You're right, though. It probably is for
this is for your draft. Exactly.
But let me just tell you right now, I cannot stand these quarterbacks not throwing at the Combine. They're all like, well, these aren't my players I throw to. I don't want to look bad. Rarely does it affect their draft status if they don't throw it. But, it frustrates me all can get out. I really wish they'd just throw. Guess what, guys? You're not going to throw to anyone you know in the NFL either because you're going to get all new teammates.
I understand it, but I understand the other side of the argument as well where they're coming in there and they're saying, look, everybody's putting all this weight on me throwing the ball to people I don't know in my underwear with no coverage. There's going to be miscommunication, everything else, and be in an unfamiliar environment. I understand it. We put all this weight on it. We already have 2 to 3 to 4 years worth of tape on some of these guys. We know what they can do. We've seen what they can do. It's not fair to sit there and say, well, you threw bad for 15 minutes here, so you just went from a first to a third round pick. That doesn't make any sense.
The only way that's going to happen is if you're completely overthrowing these guys. But you play backyard football. You've thrown a football in the street before. You've done all this your whole life. I mean, I didn't go in the NFL. I didn't go to college and play football, but I've been throwing a football since I was 5 years old. You just know how to do it. This is something that's just second nature to you. It just drives me nuts. They're not willing to showcase what they can do. I get it, why they don't do it, because they're worried about dropping a couple draft spots. But, man, I just wish all of them would because it would sit there and go, look what they do to compare to everybody else.
Now, Rob says everyone's saying Kyler Murray is short. He's 5'10", just like Drew Brees. And he's saying, do we think that necessarily is going to have an impact on him in the NFL?
No.
Look, I think being taller is a little bit of an advantage. I do. I think being shorter is a disadvantage. I think it also might hamper your GM's ability to bring in some of these taller guards and centers, especially if we're talking about these guys being 6'5", 6'6", and you're 5'10". But you can get around it. You can make it work with it. It's not a deal breaker. It's not something that should disqualify him from being a high draft pick here. I think there's no reason why we pay this much attention to how tall a guy is. You can definitely plan around it. Look at Russell Wilson. Look at Drew Brees. We've already got it in front of us that it can be done. There's no reason we shouldn't be saying the same thing about Kyler.
Absolutely. I don't think it affects anything. I think it's all about just how this guy can throw the ball and how his demeanor is. It is in some older scouts' minds that go, we really wish he was 6 foot up. But, it's already proven. Like you said, there's plenty of people already there, including Doug Flutie, who's smaller than Murray is and can still ball. Travis says, honestly, do you believe that Murray would be an early round quarterback? Absolutely.
I think he might be the first
yes.
pick in this draft. To be honest with you, the way the hype is going, the way everyone's kind of inflating it, I don't think he's as good as Baker Mayfield is. I don't think he's that quality that he should be the number one pick overall, but you can't argue that quarterback is the most important position on the field in football. Somebody's going to fall in love, they're going to get desperate, yada yada yada, and they're going to go take this guy at number one. There's no reason I think that it's not going to happen. And you know who it might be? The Cardinals, especially when their GM is coming out there and saying, Josh Rosen's our quarterback for right now. That's like the worst thing you could say. That already tells them we're planning on making a move. The only other scenario I can see here is they're trying to talk up their draft pick. They're trying to make it where, guys, they're trying to put that air out there saying, we're interested in Kyler Murray, so if you want to trade us for this pick, you're going to have to give us a lot. I don't know, man. Kingsbury's already sat there and praised him before and after he was the coach.
Yeah.
Now the GM saying Josh Rosen's our quarterback for this moment, but this moment only. I don't know, Drew. I think the Cardinals might go do something stupid here and go draft another quarterback.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they've already decided that their coach 1 year was enough. Maybe Rosen only gets 1 year and it's enough. Nathan says he'll be good, but not great. I think it's too early to tell, man. I honestly do. You know, I'm not sitting there saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but you get in the right situation. If it's Arizona, that's not the right situation. But what if he goes to the Giants? What if he goes to the Redskins, where they have a great defense and they got a lot of chances to build that offense with young players? Maybe. I mean, he might be good.
I think he'll be good. I really do. I think upside best that we're going to see is something like Russell Wilson, and that's a top 5 quarterback. I think the sky is the limit for him. I don't think he's that good. I think he's probably one step behind that. But if I had to take somebody in this draft, I would probably take him, or I'd sit there and wait until the second or third round and try to get someone like Drew Lock, who may go in the first round as well, or go and try to get somebody like Will Grier out of West Virginia and try to build one of those guys up to be the next pocket passer. I'm not really in love with Dwayne Haskins. We've seen Ohio State quarterbacks flame out way too many times, and everyone's going to sit there and tell me, oh, but Jay, come on, you can't sit there and compare him to other guys. You can when there's like 5 or 6 of them that have all set records in college. They've all looked really good under center and everything, just like Dwayne Haskins has. And then they go on and they have to turn to wide receivers. We're talking about Terrell Pryor. We're talking about Braxton Miller. I mean, there's too much of a track record of these guys not working out in the NFL for me to sit there and say, I'm going to spend the first overall pick on Dwayne Haskins and sit there and give him the keys to my franchise.
Yeah, 2 things you said there that I had to say something about. First thing, Russell Wilson being a top 5 quarterback, absolutely. If he was in a different system, we're talking top 3 easily. I think that guy has all the tangibles to be better than what he is. And then you talked about Will Grier. I think that is a sleeper quarterback in this draft. A lot of these mock drafts don't have him falling into round 1. I'm telling you right now, these teams are interested in this guy. They're interviewing him. Will Grier is one of them sleeper quarterbacks. I would not be surprised at all if that gentleman squeaks in the first round.
Rob also says he thinks the first 3 quarterbacks off the board will be Kyler Murray, Will Grier, and Drew Lock. I don't think so. I think teams are going to fall. Somebody's going to fall in love with Dwayne Haskins because he is that prototypical quarterback. He can throw. He has a big arm. He's tall. He can see over the line, and he throws from the pocket. He's not as much of a runner. Someone's going to fall in love with that. I think somebody's going to take Kyler Murray first, and then you'll see Dwayne Haskins immediately off the board afterward. It might even be the Giants at 6 if we don't see a trade that take Murray, and then we'll see Haskins go, or vice versa, the other way around, because both of those teams need a quarterback pretty badly.
And the Dolphins will be drafting whoever's left over.
Exactly. As for Drew Lock, people are up and down. I think it's hard to get a gauge on where everybody feels about him. Some people sit there and tell me he's the second best quarterback in this draft. I've seen other people sit there and tell me he's a 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
So I think he's one of those guys that he has accuracy, which is what you want to see. He doesn't have as big of an arm as some of these other guys coming out, but he's a pocket passer that can move a little bit. And honestly, I think if you look at it, he's a developmental project. He's that guy you want to be like Aaron Rodgers, that you can put behind a good quarterback. If I'm the Giants, they've talked about keeping Eli Manning. Maybe that's the road I'm going to go.
I'm kind of seeing 3 quarterbacks taken in the top, like you said, Murray, Haskins, and I think it'll be Grier. After that, I think you're going to see all the rest of them fall in day 2 during the draft.
You see Grier rising that much, jumping guys like Drew Lock.
I honestly do.
Do you? Okay.
Yep. I know all these mock drafts come out there, and he's not in their top round. I'm telling you, these teams are interviewing them. They're interested in this guy. They're watching what he's doing. I think this guy could rise very easily if he has a great combine.
I like him, too. I think Will Grier is a guy that, again, you give him a year or 2 to learn behind somebody and get used to the NFL and the speed that it's played at. He's very accurate. He's very good at hitting guys in stride. I think he can succeed. He just doesn't – he's kind of like Alex Smith to me. He's very accurate with the ball, but we're not talking about him throwing the ball 50 yards down the field. You're not going to sit there and say he's one of the best deep passing quarterbacks.
And I'm not saying –
and everybody's trying to find that guy.
And I'm not sitting there saying he's the best thing in the world. I'm not even saying he's better than Murray. I think Kyle Murray's the best quarterback in this draft. I'm just telling you that these teams are paying attention to this guy. It's something also to pay attention to. It's very much a possibility. When teams get excited about a player, they like someone. I mean, I saw one mock draft, I think, where he was in the first round and he was going to the Chargers, which would make sense. He'd have to sit behind Rivers until he's ready to give it up, and then there you go. Get him in the first round, get that fifth-year option. You got 4 years to sit the guy, and then there you go. You got a starter after year 5.
And Travis is saying, what about Daniel Jones from Duke? He's another guy up there with Drew Lock that, again, he has accuracy, which is good. That's the biggest attribute, I think, when you look at quarterbacks. You want to see them throw the ball accurately in college because you're not going to see much development in the pros. Usually by then, your pass is your pass, and you're not going to get a whole lot more accurate. But again, I think he's got some issues, just like Daniel Jones, that people are saying, is he going to be the next Tom Brady? Is he going to be the next Phillip Rivers or Roethlisberger? And they don't necessarily see that quick jump of them developing into an elite passer. They see him as a step below still, kind of like an Alex Smith was, kind of like maybe a Mariota or anyone in that next tier range that they can have good games, but they're not going to be elite every week.
Yeah, I see Jones is still a day 2 of the draft.
A lot of people have Daniel Jones as the second best quarterback and the second quarterback going in the draft here. Some people have him going as high as Jacksonville at number 7. If Dwayne Haskins goes at 6,
it's a possibility.
I think he's going to go to the Dolphins. I think he's going to go somewhere to one of these 3rd, 4th, 5th teams that needs a quarterback that hasn't been able to trade up. I think they're going to land with him. And I hope they don't throw him to the Wolves too early, but there's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks right now.
And I agree with you, and I'm not sitting there saying that these teams won't reach, but I really hope they don't. There's so much talent on that defensive side of the ball this year. There's a lot of good wide receivers out there. That all these teams that we're talking about right now taking a quarterback also need them. So hopefully they'll wait till day 2. I'm not saying that these guys aren't worth it. I mean, they might be the next greatest thing ever, but I think a lot of these guys we're talking about, Jones, even Greer, really, all can wait till day 2 before they draft them.
Yeah. Perfect world. I agree with you, Drew. But this is the NFL, and everybody needs a quarterback. I think we might even see 5 quarterbacks come off the board in the first round again. I really do believe that's a chance. Do I want it to happen? No, I hope these guys make it. I think, like I said, some of these guys are 2nd and 3rd round picks, developmental guys, kind of like Andy Dalton or Derek Carr, that eventually may be able to move into that elite status. I know Andy Dalton really never did, but he had that kind of same mantra coming out with the draft.
Right.
I just don't see it. I think when you see this, we're going to see everybody get quarterback hungry. You're going to see that run on them early, and I think we're going to see 4 guys go in the top 15. Yeah.
Ron goes with the Jags talking about releasing Bortles. In quotations, he already sold his house. Would Murray be a great fit for them?
Yeah, I like Murray for both the Giants and the Jaguars for this reason and this reason alone. Their offensive lines are absolutely terrible. You need a mobile guy that can get away from the rush. You're going to need somebody who can make things happen. You can get creative and roll things out. I really don't think someone like Ohio State's Dwayne Haskins is the right fit for these guys because you're not going to be able to protect him in the pocket. He's a slide-around guy. He's not really good at getting away from pressure. He's good for being in the pocket, but he's not going to roll out.
I think they're going to have to move up. If this is who they're aiming for, I think you're going to have to move up.
I have also heard reports the Giants are going to stick it out with Eli. They're talking about extending his contract again.
So
I'm not saying, yeah, I mean, you called it.
I called it.
But let me tell you, it's just as dumb now as it was back then.
Well, let's wait a year or 2. There's other quarterbacks coming out in college. Why rush it right now?
Because you want to win right now. You have Odell Beckham in his prime. You have Saquon Barkley in his prime.
We're not going to talk about this because you got Eli Manning, a 2-time Super Bowl winning champion.
That can't play anymore. I know. It's all about what have you done for me lately. But you're right. We're not talking about that. We're going to move on. Going back to the comment section really quick, Nathan says Jones goes to the Patriots. I think that's a Will Grier pick. Could you see that at pick 32?
Yeah.
Will Grier?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he's supposed to be very cerebral, much like Tom Brady.
I'm telling you, he's going to sneak into that first round. He's going to sit behind a quarterback that is still going to be playing. Shoot, he might go to the Saints. You never know. He's going to go to somewhere where he can learn behind somebody. These teams are interviewing him. I'm telling you, it's a guy to watch out for.
Absolutely. Now, Travis also says Miami will take a quarterback or wait until next year. Or he's asking if Miami will take a quarterback or wait till next year. I think they've already made it clear Tannehill's not going to be their guy.
No, they're taking a quarterback this year.
Yep, and the question is going to be, are they going to be able to move up to jump some of these other teams that need them? They already have the Giants and the Jaguars sitting ahead of them, plus maybe Tampa Bay that might be looking to replace Jameis Winston down the road that might want to get a developmental guy as well. It's going to be tough. I think you're going to see a blockbuster trade of the Dolphins trying to move up.
But it might not be round 1. They might wait till round 2.
That's always a gamble. But you never know. Moving on, though, we've got some pass rushers to talk about because there has been some activity here on the pass rushing free agents coming up here in the NFL, Drew. It starts with Justin Houston being reportedly on the trade block. As a Chiefs fan, man, how do you feel about this?
It disgusts me. I mean, if you want to know the ultimate truth, it disgusts me. It disgusts me because reportedly they've asked him to take a pay cut and he wouldn't do it. He's owed $21.1 million. This contract, he's taken up over 11% of our cap. He's in the last 3 years, he's only had 22 and a half sacks. He hasn't played a solid season since his big 22 sack season. So the last 4 years, he hasn't played all the way through. It's frustrating. Now, in his defense and some of those numbers, especially 2 years ago, I watched that gentleman back up in a lot of coverage and during pass plays. And I know that me and you talked about it, and you knew how much that disgusts me. It's like you're taking away his strength and making him do it something. You're tricking the other team, but really tricking yourself. When it comes to him not taking the pay cut, though, that's where it is. It's just like, man, this team is Super Bowl bound. If it's not, it's going to be there. Why don't you want to stay and finish out your career there? Take some money back. Allow the team to get better while you're still there. And him not wanting to do it, I get it. You want to make more money, but man, you made tons of money.
But here's the other side of that, and I want to get to this comments here because there's a couple good ones here from Rob and Matthew as well. But the other side of that is he's looking at it like, I've given you guys my best football. We signed a long-term agreement. It's time for you to honor that agreement. You gave me 5 years. I think it was like 6 years, $101 million contract. And now that I'm a little bit older and I'm still producing, you want to tell me that I need to take a pay cut to stay on this team?
Well, because you're not staying healthy. And you can honestly, the way they can write this contract, they could take a pay cut, but they can get incentives. So if you reach 15 sacks this year, we can give you these kind of bonuses, these kind of leaps into this.
And I understand
that's where
Drew,
that contract's
but that's like working
in.
for a company for 5 years and then you get hurt and they're like, oh, well, now it's time for us to pay you less.
Unfortunately, that's the way the NFL works. That's the way football plays. And I get it, man. You want to make the most money you can, and you want someone to validate your contract. But look at other teams. Look at other players. Marcel Darius, he's taking a pay cut.
Absolutely.
Tom Brady took a pay cut. Think about these players that have taken pay cuts when they're like, I want to win. And it seems like he doesn't want to win. It's all about him, and I get it. I don't blame him. His career's coming to an end. He's 30 years old. He's looking at the end of the road. He just wants to make as much as he can. But, man, if you believe in yourself and you believe in what this team can do, you can have a clause in there. If you win the Super Bowl, you can get a bonus there too. I mean, it's all there to be able to do it, and you're not willing to do it. All I can hope is that they trade him for something that's worth the value. I'm hoping really as high as a second-round pick.
I think you're dreaming. But that's okay. I love it. It's just a big contract and a 30 to 31-year-old. I thought he was 31. You said 30, but I think he's 31 now or will be next season.
He will be this season.
You're talking about a 31-year-old that even though he's got something left in the tank, you're bringing on a huge contract with it. Drew, we're talking about a 4th, 5th, 6th-round pick here. I mean, Joe Flacco, Super Bowl winning quarterback, went for a 4th-round pick.
Eli Manning.
Yeah, okay. Maybe you could trade him for Eli Manning. I'd give Eli Manning for him. Anyway, going back to the comments really quick. Rob says he lives in Oregon, and next year's number 1 overall pick will be Justin Herbert. Look, Ron, this year's number 1 pick would have been Justin Herbert. Yeah, so unless he has a Jake Locker-level implosion where he would have been the number 1 pick in college in his senior year, this guy's going to be the number 1 pick next year as well. We wouldn't even really be talking about Kyler Murray if this guy was out there. We'd be talking about, is Justin Herbert the number 1? Should the Cardinals take him at number 1 or are they going to trade out of it? This guy would be better than anyone else in this quarterback class. I appreciate his loyalty, sticking around with Oregon to finish out his senior year because, they took a chance on him, let him be quarterback as well. He wanted to reward that, stick around for another year. But, man, what if he takes a bad injury? We're talking about leaving a lot of money on the table. But the difference between a 1st and a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah, no, you're right. He'll be number 1 first. He'll be number 1 next year. There's no doubt about it. I fully believe it. Maybe that's what the Giants are holding out for.
Going back to the Jacksonville re-signing of Marcel Darius or the pay cut for Marcel Darius, you mentioned it before when we were talking about Justin Houston. Does this free up cap space for them to bring on Nick Foles? I mean, it obviously helps.
It does.
I don't think it's enough money, but it helps.
It's not enough. I mean, before this, they had a $1 million budget on cap. Yeah. I mean, it's bad, and it's definitely something that needs to be fixed. This helps. It's the right thing. But then again, I like it because it looks at a guy that's coming to the end of his career going, I believe in this team. I'm willing to take a pay cut to stay with this team because I believe in him. Because there's no doubt about it. He could leave, he could get released, and he could go find another team.
He could, but he might also be looking at it like, I'm getting a little bit older. I don't know that another team is going to be giving me this kind of money, so maybe I'll just take the pay cut to stick here. Justin Houston, on the other hand, might be sitting there saying somebody's going to overpay for a couple of years for a guy that can still rush the passer like me. And I don't think Marcel Darius is far off on skill.
I'm telling you right there, after that 22-sack season in the last 5 years, I think he's got, I want to say it's like 28 sacks, or no, it's 26 and a half sacks.
But like you said, there have been injuries mixed in
there.
So
you cannot sit there and tell me that he is above and beyond. Now,
we're talking psychology here.
When
you got to remember,
healthy,
he's thinking, I'm above and beyond, and that's the biggest thing.
When he's healthy, he's amazing. There's no doubt about it. He's an all-pro rusher, and there's no doubt about it. But problem is he hasn't been healthy. So it doesn't matter what you could be or what you could have been. You aren't that. So, man, it's okay.
Take
a pay cut, stick where a team.
I get where you're coming from, Drew. And we're not talking about what I would do. I'd be like the Patriots. I wouldn't pay anybody. But, I mean, you talk about where these guys are mentally. I think it shows you that at least Marcel Darius was able to sit there and look at it and say, teams don't pay D tackles. Historically, D tackles don't get a lot of money. So I'm willing to take this step back. Justin Houston's looking at it like, man, everybody pays pass rushers. I can go somewhere else. I think this might just be a difference of I play a little bit difference. I play like 4 feet over this way off of the D tackle, and that's a multi-million-dollar difference there. Yes. Moving on, our last pass rusher I want to talk about is Brandon Graham re-signing with the Philadelphia Eagles for a 3-year, $40 million contract. Drew, I didn't see this happening. I thought the Eagles were going to have to move on him. And there were a couple people that were telling me he's going to take a discount. But is this a discount? Is this a discount?
I was one of them. I told you that there's no way they're going to let this guy go.
$12.5 million? Is it really that much of a discount? I'm not going to sit there and say look, it's not one of those discounts that you're like, man, the player took a team-friendly deal and he just wants to play, he just wants to win. But he could have gone off and got more, which I think, again, when you're talking about Justin Houston not being flexible at all with the Chiefs is another kind of negative in that situation. When you've got guys like Graham, who, even though he's not putting up sack numbers, if you look at his rushing grades and how he does stacking up against some of these teams and getting after the quarterback and creating pressure and making mistakes, he's one of the best in the NFL. Even though he's not getting the sack, he's putting these quarterbacks under pressure and making them make mistakes.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. He's stuck with this team, and it's something I wish Justin Houston would do. But I love this re-signing. I love the fact he's willing to stay in Philly. Brandon Graham made a great decision to stick with this team, and this is the guy I said that they need to keep on their roster.
Absolutely.
When we did our free agency episode, if you guys want to check it out. I love it. I think it's the right move for him. I'm absolutely glad that they managed to get this done, too. I think it helps them immensely bringing a guy back like this. And again, I hope the Chiefs can come to terms with Justin Houston before they move him out. That's the one thing. When you've got a guy that's been there that long, it's always tough to see him traded off somewhere else. I don't think they find a deal. I think they wind up cutting him. And I think they're going to take that money to bring back D Ford, because this is how Moneyball works. Yeah. Justin Houston's been great for you, but you've got a 24 or 25-year-old that needs that money. He's getting paid right now. So, unfortunately, what have you done for me lately? You got to get rid of the 31-year-old instead. What's going on, Jerry? I'm glad you're here to agree with me, man. Rewind some of this episode and look what I thought about Justin Houston. Tell me what you think, man. I know you joined in a little bit late, but see if you can check it out and tell me what you think. Absolutely. All right, Drew. Why don't we move on to grading the AFC South? It's our last division and their 2018 draft grades. Let's start with the Indianapolis Colts. We're going in alphabetical order, and man, this team has owned my team for years. I don't want to give them any credit, but when you take a guy like Quentin Nelson at number 6, man, what else can I say? I mean, this is you get an All-Pro out of the sixth pick. It's exactly what you want. Right, and a lot of experts kind of scratched their head at this pick. You had good guards. Your guard issue wasn't the issue. It was your tackles. But you took this guy, and this guy brought in a whole different kind of atmosphere around this offensive line. This guy brought the toughness. This guy brought in what he set the tone exactly in an offensive line, and he literally turned around. I absolutely love this pick. He started all 16 games, all pro guard. This guy is a staple point for the next decade in this offensive line. Absolutely. And it didn't get any worse. Going down to round number 2, Darius Leonard at 36, man. This linebacker was Defensive Player of the Year, or Defensive Rookie of the Year, I should say. He was an All-Pro. Could have been Defensive Player of the Year. He absolutely could. I mean, the guy was a monster, especially on a unit that last year, you look at it, it was night and day. They were terrible last year. And then it's like he gets there, they flip a switch, and he gets them to the playoffs. I'm not saying they're the best unit in football. Right. But if they put another couple guys in this defense, they might be. I'm kind of a big stats guy, if you guys can tell. So let me just read this off. In 15 games, he had 163 tackles, 7 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, 2 interceptions, 12 tackles for a loss, and 8 quarterback hits. You get that out of a year 3, year 4, year 5 middle linebacker in the NFL. Not a year 1, especially not a second round. This guy had all the talent to be a first round. He should have been one of the first people off the board. This was such a great pick by Indianapolis. Absolutely, and the question is going to be, do we see that again? And I think we will. I mean, when I watched him, the first half of the season, I was like, okay, he's having a great start of the year, not a big deal. And then you start seeing him a little bit. You see a little bit of this tape, and you're like, man, this kid's good. He's flying to the ball everywhere. Like, he's covering the pass. He's around it. He's blanketing people, and even more than that, he's baiting them quarterbacks into making bad throws. I mean, absolutely, Darius Leonard looks like one of the best linebackers in the NFL already, and this is only his first year.
it's not looking good for my Titans. That's all I can say. And you talk about their other second-round pick, Braden Smith, offensive tackle. He wasn't Quentin Nelson. But when you talk about the switch between last year and them having one of the worst offensive lines to having one of the best ones because they brought in a right tackle and a left guard, he absolutely should be talked about just like Quentin Nelson for setting the tone. I mean, they absolutely turned things around with this pick.
They did. I mean, he had 13 starts, played 15 games. This guy made himself a starter in Indianapolis. And you're absolutely right. These two picks they just make that offensive line so much better.
Absolutely. He could improve. I've heard some people sit there and say, it wasn't the best year, but let's not forget Indianapolis went like 5 or 6 weeks without allowing a sack. That's an entire offensive line achievement, not just your offensive guard. He was absolutely a part of that, and he helped turn around a unit that was not very good without him and Quentin Nelson being there.
When you look at these last 2 second-round picks, they had 4 of them. They don't have the names that you've been hearing in the radio or in the TV, and these aren't the people that have been sitting there making all these, but they also help to make this defense a lot better.
They are, and they're role players still. They didn't have that instant impact like the offensive linemen did, but when you're talking about Kamiko Turi, and I love that you left these names for me, and Tyquan Lewis, see, you got me too. There were 6 sacks between them. As rookies, that's not bad, especially when you're talking about rotational guys. 6 sacks out of these young players. This might be a growing opportunity here for Indianapolis because we talk about how they need a pass rush coming up here.
Yep.
They may sit there and look at it like, we already have 2 guys that we're trying to groom into those roles. We need to bring in maybe 1 veteran to lead the way, and then these guys are going to ascend next year.
They also had 21 quarterback hits, so they were constantly being around that quarterback in that pocket.
Absolutely.
Which is what you need. And when you take 4 second-round picks and you hit on 2 of them, and the other 2 are decent role players, you had a heck of a draft.
Exactly. I mean, 4th round, they drafted Nyheim Hines. Again, it didn't get any worse, man. Running back, he was a great spell back for Marlon Mack, who, if you don't know, was very up and down this year. He put in about 7 or 8 great starts and about 7 or 8 no-shows. So to have a guy like that, and Jordan Wilkes, that was a 5th-round running back that can come in there and play that number 2 role really well. Again, 2 good running backs that you got in the late rounds. Who needs Saquon Barkley when you got Nyheim? No, I'm kidding. But they did really well drafting these guys, too, I think. One other couple picks that they took, Matthew Adams and Zaire Franklin, a couple linebackers that, again, even though they didn't have the impact that Leonard did, they still played meaningful games. They played meaningful snaps. They're growth players. And when you have 11 picks, and there's not one of them that I'm like, man, they really missed on that one, you got to give them an A+, right, Drew?
You told me I couldn't give him an A++, because that's what I would have gave him. And the Hines pick on the 4th round, I like that. He was definitely a great back out of the backfield. He caught 63 passes. I love their draft all the way through and through. It's definitely an A+. Hey, guys, grade it. Let us know what you think on the Colts draft this last year. Give us a grade. We'll shout you out when you give us a grade.
Absolutely. Also, talking about Jacksonville, we're going to change things up a little bit. Because we go from having to me, the Colts had the best draft this year. A+ for me. I'm not going to go any higher. We're staying on the grading scale. A+ for me, but still the best draft class. And then we're going to talk about Jacksonville. And you talk about Taven Bryan being the first pick, the defensive tackle. He's played in 16 games here, Drew, but he really did not make much of an impact. 20 tackles, 1 sack. Really a bad year for the guy that was supposed to be Marcel Darius' replacement before this negotiation came down where they're going to keep him on a cheaper deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still like to know his snap count. He only had 1 start out of the 16 games. It might have been just kind of going in there when they're getting tired. I mean, you kind of question it a little bit on this pick because they have 2 defensive tackles. And then they bring him in, and it's kind of like, okay, why would you take that in your first round?
Well, it's because they knew they expected Marcel Darius to pull a Justin Houston and say, you guys promised me all this money, you're going to pay me all this money.
There was so much need everywhere else, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It was a little bit of a question mark for me. Like you said, he got a chance to play in 16 games. He only had 20 tackles, 1 sack. We hope he can perform a little bit better.
You do. I don't. They're in my division. Anyway, moving on. Round 2, they drafted DJ Shark, wide receiver. He's played in 11 games, Drew. Didn't start any of them. When you talk about this wide receiver core, to have a 2nd-round pick, not really make much of an impact like Shark did. I don't want to call him a bust because even coming out of college, I was like, DJ Shark looks like a good player for them. But it's got to be better. Can you pin this all on Blake Bortles? Or is this all of it, the entire thing?
No.
But yes.
95% of it. I mean, the guy's probably very talented as far as DJ Shark goes. He obviously needs someone who throws the ball a little bit better than Bortles, and maybe he'll shine a little bit when the Jaguars do something at their quarterback position. But you're right, this was a flop in the second-round pick. He needs to perform a lot better than that.
And Jerry gives the Colts an A as well on their grade. I think the only team he had higher than the Colts, I think, was the Denver Broncos, if I remember right. Let's go
to
back.
Make his wife happy.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Let's go back to Jacksonville, though. Round 3, they drafted Ronnie Harrison, defensive back. This might be their only good pick, Drew. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, but he didn't shine either. He only had 32 tackles, 1 sack, 1 interception. I mean, this is great for,
He was a decent role player. When you got guys like Boye in front of you, you got guys like Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
You're not the featured cornerback. He was probably their dime most of the
started
season.
8 games.
Yeah.
I mean, he only played 14. You want to see a little bit more of him, but it's hard to shine when you have that many superstars on that defense.
Especially when the defense isn't performing well.
Right.
To have any kind of showing like he did, I think is still a good sign, and he's also that insurance in case they move Jalen Ramsey out this season, like the rumors have been that they're considering trading him and everything else. They're not going to, but if they do, you've got this other guy that might be able to step into the role in year 2. Moving on, I don't really want to name too many of these other guys because they didn't really make much of an impact. The only other guy I want to talk about is Logan Cook, their punter, a 7th-round pick. Look, they got a decent punter. The guy didn't set the world on fire on special teams, but they got a guy who was serviceable and was able to kick the ball for him. You talk about this draft, Drew. I mean, what kind of grade can you give these guys?
D-.
Bring on the hate.
D-. And the only reason they didn't get an F is because of Rodney Harrison. That's the only reason they didn't get
Ronnie Harrison, not Rodney Harrison.
I said Rodney.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah,
make sure we're talking about the same guy.
It's my accent.
I'm going to give him a D. I'm going to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because, again, Ronnie Harrison had a decent year as well. DJ Shark, even though he didn't perform, I still believe in what he can do. I still like the pick at wide receiver there. I was kind of scratching my head when they took Taven Bryan last year as well, but maybe, just maybe, he winds up being a good 3rd D tackle, good rotational guy for them.
He's undersized for defensive tackle. He's going to need to get a lot stronger to push people around.
I agree. But
especially like Quentin Nelson.
I think this was a scheme fit issue more than anything. This was a guy that was supposed to play somewhere in between that 3-gap D tackle and defensive end. He was going to be a big defensive end, and he was going to be a little defensive tackle in a 4-3 scheme. I don't think he's big enough to play in a 34. He's not big enough to play in one of those kind of schemes.
I'm right there.
So I'm kind of confused as to why they took him. It was
is.
almost like a desperation pick because they're like, Marcel Darius isn't going to be here. We need somebody to play D tackle. And obviously, when you draft on desperation, bad things usually happen to you.
Jerry's going to go ahead and just give him an F. He thinks that he is just...
I'm not far off. I'm going to go D. I think I said that already.
I
but
said
let me
D-, but...
Yeah. It was pretty bad.
What's going on, Ryan?
At the very least, they wound up getting a punter out of this draft. Maybe that's the guy who sticks with them for the years going forward.
So Ryan says, Murray is 5'10". Did they add his hair? Always wonder that. I know that I'm a little late. Maybe you'll cover already what's your thoughts.
We did talk extensively about Kyler Murray and everything with the draft, whether the Cardinals are going to take him. So if you do want to jump back, you can always rewind to the beginning. But really quick, going on to Kyler Murray, I do believe that something might have happened. Anyway, let's continue.
Let's keep going.
When you look at Kyler Murray, he's absolutely going to be a high draft pick this year. I think they do fudge the numbers a little bit, but that's okay. I mean, honestly, he showed up at 207 pounds. He's not going to be 207 pounds when he plays. This is all weight. There's a reason he's not running at the combine. It's because he put on all this muscle, and now he's going to slow down a little bit. He's going to shed these pounds. He's going to run at his pro day and everything. This is all entirely for his draft stock. That's all I can say, Ryan. This is all, ignore pretty much everything you read. It has no bearing on whether he's going to be a good quarterback or not when it comes to what he's doing at the combine.
I think he's going to be a great quarterback. We'll see what happens.
Moving on, let's talk about the Texans here really quick, Drew. They didn't have a first-round pick. They didn't even have a second-round pick, but they did have 3 third-round picks, and it started with Justin Reed, a safety who, to me, this is their best player. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic against the pass, against the run. They got one of the better safeties out of this draft all the way down in the 3rd round.
No, absolutely. It kind of makes you scratch your head with all the people that took him before. He didn't take this guy before this. When you look at him, he started 12 games, played all 16, 88 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, and 10 pass deflects. This guy was all over the field with a defense that's really good. So he shined in that secondary where that secondary did not shine.
I agree with you. And now, moving on here, I want to talk about Martinez Rankin, offensive lineman. When you have the worst offensive line in football, even though he's a 3rd-round pick, should he have stepped up? Should this have been kind of a scenario where he moved into that starting role a little bit earlier than towards the end of the season like he did?
I mean, yeah. If you want a long career and be considered one of the greats, you absolutely need to turn it around. And unfortunately for him, he didn't. He joined in there to a crew that was arguably
literally the worst in football. I mean, let's
arguably one of the worst ever in football. And they're lucky that their defense was so good and that Deshaun Watson can ball and Hopkins can catch anything you throw within 10 yards around him. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then another third-round pick, Jordan Atkins, tight end. When you pair him and Jordan Thomas and look at the production they got out of him, I'm going to say they did okay at tight end, replacing a guy like Fedorowicz, who was not a premier tight end, but was still able to get things done.
Hold on. Matthew, you making fun of me? He says, I'm great. Well, buddy, you'll be a great quarterback in the NFL someday. I promise you that. You just go out there and try to get in the combine, run on the field, see what happens. You're a little bit higher on this pick than I am with Atkins and Atkins, or whatever his name is. And which I get it. He's a role player. He was definitely there for a little bit more blocking scheme. And when you have someone like Hopkins, you're not going to shine, especially as a second tight end. But as a 1 and 2 tight end combo, this seemed to work out well for him.
I agree, and I think, like I said, it was by committee, by 100%. We didn't necessarily see either one of these guys take over. You're not talking about all-pro tight ends or anything like that. But tight end is a very difficult position to play in the NFL. It's one of those ones you have to grow into. So to get a guy like this out of the third round, when we saw some other guys like Miami's tight end not really spark, and they were taken much higher in the draft, I don't necessarily see it as a problem. I think it's okay. To me, the highlight of this, not necessarily the highlight, but one of the better picks of this draft for Houston was Kiki Corte, or Qt, however you pronounce it. I think it's Qt, actually. Wide receiver, he didn't play that much because of injury, but Drew, when he was out there, he was making things happen. 28 receptions, 287 yards and a touchdown, a great game in the playoffs as well. And then you want to sit there and look at it and say he only played in 6 games this year. He only started 2 of them. That's pretty good. That's pretty good production out of a 4th-round pick.
Oh, absolutely. I love this pick. Unfortunately, he couldn't stay healthy for the whole season. I'd love to see what he can do, later on. And to be honest, in my opinion, besides Justin Reed, this 4th-round pick saved their draft.
Saved their draft, huh?
Because I think he's talented. If he can stay healthy, this guy's going to be good.
I agree with you. I think it was a good pick, and one of the biggest issues in Houston has been their depth at wide receiver for years now. I mean, they brought in guys like Braxton Miller. You've had questions out of their speedster, whose name I can't think of at this moment. Will Fuller. Thank you. So to get a guy like QT, that if he can stay on the field and produce, we're talking about Houston.
Can you imagine Hopkins, Fuller, and Cutie all being healthy?
But that's the thing. I was gonna say the question is going to be, can he stay on the field? If he stays healthy, I think this is a home run pick. If he doesn't, it's just another Houston wide receiver, right?
Well, yeah, but if they can stay healthy, that's arguably probably they got to be up there with the best trio of wide receivers in the NFL.
At least one of the fastest or the most dynamic. Let me say that. I don't know about best, but I'll give you that, Drew. I mean, I think they can make things happen.
Just real quick, you got to think how crappy that offensive line is.
Very true.
Deshaun Watson has proven he can ball, and Hopkins steals all the thunder. But when Fuller and Cutie were there and healthy, those guys balled out too.
That's true. That's true. I'm not going to give them any kind of edge over like Atlanta's receivers, but I agree with you. They're still a good group.
I'm not saying they're the best. I said one of the best.
One of the best. All right, fair enough. I'll give you one of the best. Moving on, the next best pick I can sit there and point to is Trevor Daniel, their punter, who looked really, really good. You talk about him being an undrafted free agent versus Jacksonville spending a pick on him. They definitely benefited better than Jacksonville did. And special teams, whether people admit it or not, they win games. You need that punter that can make an impact, and he absolutely did that. He had a great showing this year. Probably one of the better rookie punters, maybe top 3, I would say, out of this draft this year. So to get a guy like that in undrafted free agency as well, I'm going to add it as part of this draft. And Drew, I'm going to give him a B+ here because I like QT. I like Justin Reed, and they did well on special teams as well. They've got a couple of growth tight ends. I like the way that things have gone for them.
I'm going to give it a B-. I like their picks. I like Reed, and I like Cutie. I kind of just wish in the 3rd round they would have picked a little bit more people that would have changed it. Like Ratkin, he didn't change that offensive line. So, and I just want to see a little bit more. But, hey, it's a good draft, B-.
Fair point. All right, Drew, let's get into a fight here. Titans, the last team we're talking about here. Round 1, it started with Rashad Evans, 22nd pick, linebacker. Was injured for a good part of the year. He was active for 15 games. He didn't play a whole lot in all of them. He started 7 of them. What are your thoughts on him? You're wrong. Moving on. Go ahead.
No, I absolutely love this pick. This is a great pick of theirs. I think that he could be something fantastic out of this defense. Talk about a great defense to come into. You got tons of stars. You got a great system that, blinking on your coach's name right now. Your coach, head coach. Oh, okay, cool. The head coach of the Titans has a great system put in line for this defense. It's going to work out great. And the only issue is he got banged up. And I know what you're going to tell me. They knew this, but he played a little bit shy of 50% of snaps when he played. You want to see a little bit more production out of this guy. And when I say that, I'm not saying tackles. I know you're going to sit there and tell me the middle linebacker, that's what he does. But you're right. 7 games that he started with 50% of the 15 games that he played, he got 53 tackles. Gets 2 tackles for loss, 1 quarterback hit, and 1 pass deflection. I'd like to see those numbers rise a little bit out of a young linebacker in the first round, but I absolutely love this pick.
Vrabel is what you're looking for. I was reading the comments. You caught me there off guard. But when you talk about Rashad Evans, look, man, for a linebacker, for a middle linebacker, that he was injured coming out of college. They knew it was going to be a slow start for him. They didn't really come on until the second half of the season, but when you already have guys like Wesley Woodyard and Jayon Brown that are eating up a lot of these snaps ahead of him, I think he did absolutely fantastic. I love this pick. He played just as well as guys like the linebacker Tremaine Edmonds for Buffalo, also Chicago's linebacker, whose name I can't think of at the moment. Roquan Smith. He had a great showing here. He wasn't Darius Leonard, but not everybody can be. I think this is still a great pick out of the Titans at pick 22, especially when you talk about the third middle linebacker to get this kind of production out of him. I want to see a full season, but I like the way things are looking for him right now.
I absolutely love this pick. Hey, real quick, Jerry gave Houston a B-. I think that's a fair grade, and he said he's going to try to give the Titans a good grade for you.
Jerry, you don't have to give him a good grade for me. Don't spare my feelings at all, man. Tell me exactly what you're thinking. Don't go easy on him. I didn't. We'll talk about my grade here going on in a minute.
Well,
here.
You didn't go easy on the Titans?
I didn't.
Okay.
We'll talk about it here in a second.
We're going forward.
Round 2, Harold Landry, edge defender here. This guy was talked about as a first-round pick, so for the Titans to steal him in the second round, they traded up, which is why they only had 4 picks in this draft. They gave away a lot of their capital to get this guy. 4.5 sacks, Drew, for a guy who is definitely the 3rd edge rusher out of the group, if not the 4th, behind Kamale Correa. What do you think about them bringing in this edge rusher, and do you see... What did you think about the year he had?
I actually love this guy. I think this is a great pick, and you're absolutely right. He was a first-round talent that slipped into the second round. You guys got a steal here. And when you look at, you said 4.5 sacks, he also added in 5 tackles for a loss, 1 forced fumble, 14 quarterback hits, which means he's getting on to the quarterback and that pocket. He is not playing a full-time starter, and that's a lot of quarterback hits. He also had 2 pass deflects, which means he's popping up his hand when that ball's coming out. I love it. You're like you said, and I'm going to steal your thunder. This guy is a starter in year 2.
Yeah, he absolutely has to be, especially with Brian Orakpo retiring. We're talking about Derek Morgan moving on. I mean, there's a chance he returns with the Titans, but probably not. And then you look at the way the starters played this year. I think Brian Orakpo only had 2 sacks and led the starting defensive linemen, or outside linebackers, I should say, in tackles. To see Harold Landry come in from a backup role and outproduce him is exactly what you want to see. Now, I still have concerns about the way he guards the run. I know you spouted off the tackles for loss, which I love to see, but he is still light. He's easy to move. I want to see some things happen with Harold Landry next year. I want to see him bulk up a little bit, but we'll see how it goes with him. I still like this pick. It's a home run pick. I see him more as a role player to come in and rush a passer. I see him maybe playing 50-60% of the snaps to only go after the pass rush, but in the second round, I think this is an absolute home run pick for the Titans as well. Let's talk about pick number 5, or round 5, their pick, Dwayne Cruikshank.
We'll get to him real quick. Just want to talk. Matthew said Saints and Raiders are possible spots for Antonio Brown. He just read that. I don't see the Saints, man. I just don't see.
They don't have the money for it.
Is the key. You're talking about Michael Thomas sharing the thunder. There's no way, man. That guy is one of the up and coming stars of the NFL. For someone like Antonio Brown to come in there wanting to have more receptions than him, I highly doubt that, man. Now the Raiders, absolutely, I see it. They had the cap.
I think
the
Raiders
are
#1. I think the Bay Area is great. He said he wants to be out there. He kind of hinted at San Francisco instead of the Oakland Raiders. And I know they won't be there forever. They don't even know where they're going to play in 2019. But I do see them as a potential trade partner for sure because they have so many needs and they have so many picks that Antonio Brown could be one of those guys that Gruden decides he has to have. Going on to the Saints, like you said, they don't have the cap room for it. I don't see Antonio Brown playing second fiddle to Michael Thomas, which is probably the way it'll have to be. Yeah. And I don't see Pittsburgh wanting to trade him to the Saints very often because they're going to sit there and say, if we're going to the Super Bowl, do we want to play a team like the Saints with Antonio Brown added to them? Definitely not. So I don't know if Pittsburgh will even allow that trade to New Orleans.
Maybe not even.
I don't blame New Orleans for being interested, though. I would be, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Going back to Dane Cruikshank really quick, a 5th-round safety for the Titans. Look, he didn't necessarily start any games, but he had a lot of talent in front of him. He had Kenny Vaccaro and Kevin Byard, an all-pro safety, in front of him. But he made an impact on special teams. He single-handedly caught a touchdown pass against the Houston Texans on a pass from Kevin Byard, no less, on a fake punt that won us a game early in the season when Marcus Mariota was surprised, out, injured.
His highlight career right there.
Well, even beyond that, he was a fantastic gunner on the punt team. He was a very good special teamer on the kickoffs as well. He made an impact in year one, especially out of a 5th-round safety. To get a good special teamer, I think is a good pick for them. I like this pick, and I think the only reason he didn't start this year is because the Titans are so good at safety.
Okay. You're right. And, special teamers in the 5th round, that's exactly what you're getting 5th round picks for. You want them to shine in those special team areas. And it's great that he caught a touchdown pass and made a highlight of his career. Does it end there? I don't know. I mean, you're talking about 2 players that are above him that they both like. They like Byard. They like Vaccaro. So it's hard for him to get that starting role. If he could push himself up there, that's great. But you saying you think he would have started, I think that's a little bit of a reach.
Look, the way he tackled, I think he definitely could have been a strong safety. He was a very solid tackler for the year, even going beyond the pass defense. Some people say, or at least the reports from the Titans have been, we like the way he guards the pass. He looks good in practice and everything against the pass, which is good to have a versatile safety. But when you got a guy like Kevin Byard in front of you, you're not taking that free safety spot. Maybe Vaccaro moves on this year and they don't bring back their other safety as well. And we talk about Cruikshank being the starting strong safety next year. I think he's ready from a tackle perspective, which some strong safeties, that's all they do.
Right.
I also think he's versatile enough to play both. The question is going to be, does he evolve and take that next step forward and eventually become a starter? I think he has a chance to. So I like this draft pick, especially out of the 5th round. You could do a lot worse. Now, their final pick, Luke Falk, quarterback, did not spend much time on the Titans. They tried to sneak him onto the practice squad, and Miami grabbed him up, kept him on the roster as the 3rd quarterback, and let me just say this. They thought so much of him, they didn't play him ahead of Brock Osweiler when something happened to Tannehill. So not really a great pick there. Essentially, the Titans had 3 draft picks here. But out of those 3 draft picks, when I go to grade these guys, Drew, I got to give them an A- because they got a quality defensive end in Harold Landry. They got a very good linebacker that, yes, he faced some injuries, but when he was out there, he was very good in Rashad Evans. Yep. And then Dane Cruikshank, who looks like he can evolve into a starting safety and looks very good on special teams, and he's making things happen. And let me say this. If he doesn't catch that touchdown pass, and maybe this is skewing my grade a little bit, if he doesn't catch that touchdown pass, we're not talking about the Titans playing the Colts for a playoff game in Week 17. They would have been out of it.
Right. So your tough grade on your team, what'd you give him?
I gave him an A-. I did. And for all those reasons I just gave him. When you only have 3 picks, you need to hit on all of them, and I feel like they did.
I gave him a B. And I gave him a B because you're absolutely right. They hit home runs, in my opinion, in their first 2 picks. That was absolutely great. The last 2 are questionable. But the reason why I'm not giving them a B+, which I really thought about, is because where did they struggle? There was offense. And I get it. No one knew that their offensive line was going to go one of the best to one of the worst in 1 year. But you knew you didn't have weapons. You knew your receiving core was a little shaky. You knew that you needed something else there to make it a little bit better. You come out of the year with the 28th ranked offense, and
here's part of the reason we were late.
And
let me just interject
here. I love these picks. I love it, but I just can't give them anything higher than a B. I thought about a B+, and Jerry's agreeing with me. He's even going lower.
He says B- or C++. I told him not to pull any punches. I don't blame him for not. I think part of the reason he's kind of skewing is because they didn't have all these draft picks. We're not talking about them hitting on 4th and 5th round picks because they had so few picks in this draft. But going back to it, like I said, they hit 3 out of 4. The only guy that missed was a 6th round pick. At the very least, they had 2 and a role player out of a 5th round pick here. So Drew, again, we're kind of overemphasizing. This is a 5th round pick we're talking about here, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they got a quality special team.
There's a lot of 5th round specialty teams players out there.
Who's the best 5th round pick this year?
It definitely isn't Dane Cruikshank.
Get it right. Going back to this though, you were complaining about the Titans taking only defensive players in this draft. That's because I don't blame him. Not everybody keeps up with literally everything the Titans do like I do. But if you look at the way the Titans have drafted for the past few years, they've gone.
Smith is the best the best special teams player, and he's taken the 6th round.
Fair enough.
All right.
Anyway, Drew, when you look at what the Titans have done in years past, they've gone super heavy on offense. This was a need draft where they said, we just don't have enough defensive players. We want to keep that mantra of having good defense. So, yes, I'm sure they would have loved to draft a wide receiver at pick 22. They probably would have loved to have Calvin Ridley.
I love both.
But they had to go defense here.
I absolutely love their first 2 picks. But I cannot give them an A. And so far, everyone is in agreement with me.
And when you say everyone, you mean Jerry. Go with B-.
Jerry agrees with Drew at all times. You can just ask him. It was a great draft. Don't ever get me wrong. The Titans did a great with what they could do. You really can't really harp on their 5th and 6th round. A lot of people strike out there. They did find someone that fit their system and special teams. That's great. I just think that they should have drafted more towards their need. But you say it was. I see it differently. we move on with our lives.
Absolutely. Again, we don't have 40 minutes to get into this like we did before the show. So anyway, I'm going A-. Drew's going, what was it, B-? B?
No, B.
Regular B? All right.
I wanted to give him a B+, I just couldn't.
That's going to round it out. All right, man. Let's go special thanks here before I have an aneurysm. Because my Titans didn't get the best draft in the NFL.
Guys, remember, we love all the likes, all the comments, all the shares. We appreciate everything you guys do for us. It makes the world for us. It helps us out in our show. And I just want to give a special thanks. Sorry, I'm all lost.
Also, just real quick, Matthew says he's indifferent and won't grade them. It's because the Titans and the Vikings don't face each other. I guarantee if the Titans were in the same division, you'd be telling them how this was an F.
Just a special thanks out there to you guys. Ron, Travis, Matthew, Jerry, Ryan. You guys are all awesome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely, guys. It was a fantastic show. We appreciate you helping us finish grading the last division for any team, I guess, in the NFL when it comes to the 2018 drafts. We're going to be talking more about the 2019 draft coming up here as well. So for Sports Around the Bar, I'm Jake, your bartender. This is Drew, and we can't wait to talk sports with you guys next time.
See ya.